Thank you very much for joining us. It's the second day, the afternoon. So understand everybody at a big meal might be a little bit tired. So we're gonna basically talk today about. Let me just go back. Yeah. About 3 big points. First of all, I would like to explain a little bit who DS Smith is. Not so much to bore you to death with boring company details or statistics, but much more to give you an impression. If I would be in the audience myself, I would be curious to know, like, this company in front of me, what do they do? Are they similar like me? Do we have things in common? And so are there problems that we might have had in the past with Showpad or challenges that could also be interesting for you guys then to leverage on or to look at and explore? Second point, Dieter from our partner agency BBC, he will do a demo, a live demo of Showpad, of how it's built. And our Showpad is slightly different. So we didn't go with the standard implementation. We don't really have the Atom format, but we have much more a full HTML5 development. So it should be really interesting to have a look at. And then as a last point, just to close, we'll be talking about 4 basically points that we picked up along the way on working in Showpad and things that we found interesting, exploring Showpad and implementing it, and where we said, like, this is something we would also like to share today. So when we were first invited to come here and to team up with Showpad, specifically at this event, that did not come natural to us. You have to imagine, for us, Showpad is really a technology company. They do coding, they do app development, they have coders. And DS Smith, as a company, we can't be any further from that. What we are known for and what we do very well is corrugated board. And if you're not familiar with the term, it's not for nothing that I have this product next to me, but that's really corrugated board. In our business, that is called the FEFCO 201. I know. It's the American box, the American folding box, the transport box. But as you can imagine, I wouldn't be standing here if we ship like 2, 3 of these boxes. We really do a lot of these products and in many, many variations. But I'll explain a little bit later how that works. So selling more and more of these products and becoming bigger and bigger in that market, at some point at DS Smith we said, how do we really want to define ourselves moving forward? What is typical for DS Smith? How do we want to differentiate ourselves from the competition? And then the one single thing how we'd like to describe ourselves is we want to be considered as the leading supplier of sustainable packaging solutions. And if you really look at that, leading, then suddenly that teaming up with the Showpad, it suddenly starts to make sense. Because typically, what is it that leading companies do? They go out there in the market, they go and try to, sorry for that. They go out there in the market and they try to find other leading companies. They team up with them, and I think that's also one of the reasons, just like us, that you're here today. You go out and you try to find similar companies that can complement. And so that's for us why we liked to basically team up with the Showpad and look at how we can leverage from each other, how we can use each other's strengths. And I was talking earlier about the many packaging solutions that we sell. And I just want to say, it's not only within DS Smith a packaging division that we have, but we have other colleagues, we have other divisions, multiple divisions. And if you look at those, we have, for example, a paper division. And the paper division, it's completely different colleagues. They have their own stories, they build their own content, they have their own personas that they work with. And next to that, we have colleagues from recycling. And again, more colleagues that also have their own stories to tell and that target completely different personas. But of course, our customers in packaging, they're also interested to hear from us what we do in recycling. They ask us the question, what's your vision around sustainability? How do you go around water treatment? So when we go in front of customers, we need all of this content. We need all of these stories. Also within one division, we need the stories of the other divisions. But as a marketeer or as a sales guy, This basically means for us more complexity, more stories, more content, more things to maintain, and just more complexity. And besides that, having that wider organization, not only packaging, but also these other divisions, we also went a little bit deeper in our channels. So we started to look at the market and we said, hey, what we see out there today is a lot of companies who are building on insights. They try to get knowledge from the market, and they try to use that knowledge to augment their services and basically sell more value offering in the market. So we also want to do that. And so again, also there, we said, let's split up our market. Let's not look at it as a market of one, but let's start to use segments, use insights. And so we've been building more content around different markets, being that automotive markets, and you can imagine boxes to ship very heavy automotive parts. We've been working and looking at retail markets, and we've been building solutions for the retail market. So again, that content that just became more complex, more stories, more personas, etc., etc. And so if you then look at the organization back in 2010, we were present in a couple of countries, but of course also our colleagues from corporate, they've done their work. They've been massively looking at opportunities in new markets, looking at are there acquisition opportunities. And so the company went out and basically procured 40 other companies over a set of years. So from back in 2010, being present in only a few countries across Europe, suddenly we're present in all across Europe. We also have our first footprint in the American markets. We're also working in China, in Asia. So you can see where I'm going, right? That whole managing the content and managing the different personas and making sure that our brand remains consistent, that everywhere we go and everywhere DS Smith is mentioned and everywhere where we share that content, that is done consistently, that became a little bit of a challenge. And as you get bigger and your stories become more complex, you lose a little bit of here and there of the brand or the strength of the brand. Also the stories, as you get bigger, maybe the story in Eastern Europe was not anymore told exactly the same way as the story was told in UK. And also on a product level, again, showing that complexity, a lot of solutions being built, that being in in-store environment, we do very nice luxury packaging, etc., etc. So as a quick warm-up, I promised you that we would do really a live demo, and I think Dieter is very keen to start with that. But before we go, a quick 30-second video clip that we created to promote our build that we're so proud of. And so I think this is the one thing that I still wanna say before Dieter goes ahead and really shows you how it looks like and does the interactive tour. When we first went to BBC and we said, like, guys, we really have a challenge, this is basically what we said. We said, BBC, we have many personas in our business. We speak to sustainability managers, we speak to purchasing profiles, but one of the personalities or the brand personas or the personas that comes up a lot these days is basically the brand manager. The brand manager for us is quite complex to work with, because the brand manager for us in packaging, they want to be everywhere. And with that I mean they're concerned about how their brand looks like in distribution. They're concerned how their brand looks like in the retail environment. They want to make sure that at end users, that box and their brand on it really arrives in pristine condition. And so that was really a big part of our briefing when we started to work with our agency, and when we said like, how can we use all of this, what I just explained, and really build a little bit of a showpad that fixes these challenges.
Okay. Now I can show you what we did in a live demo. That's always nice, but it's Showpad, so it works offline, so it will be not a problem at all. So what we did was the biggest question, challenge was, of course, the different personas they were and all the different types of content. So the first thing we did together was like speaking with a lot of sales and marketers to understand how they sell and how we transform the story as well from talking about products that really talking about service and the challenges of the different personas. So we directly came up to the idea of like we create a custom experience, an experience app in Showpad, and we will link it directly to the SDK from the beginning, because the whole idea was that we will build only the English version, let's call it the mothership, and then the local marketing teams would be able to duplicate everything themselves and translate everything themselves and add the content they would need in their countries. So that was a bit the start of everything to do so. And we have here like two different ways, there are three different ways of starting your conversation. The idea is you open the experience app and you never leave it. I mean, like of course you open other assets and other things, but you stay within the experience. So once you close, you don't have to go from channel to another thing. You can stay in the same environment and manage it yourself. That's a very important thing. So again, you saw Magali. She is the brand manager of Oreo. So I will do, for example, a pitch, and I will know like, hey, you're in food and drinks. And like the slides you saw from David, like there are different filters that before we start, we first quickly ask like, hey, okay, you're in food and drinks, and you do, in this case, confectionery and sweet biscuits. It's Oreo cookies, so we go to there. And this is a bit the general story, the general structure of the sales pitch in general, like with all the topics you want to talk about towards your different personas. As a brand manager, you're not interested, you can be interested in production and raw materials, but I think, like it says, like you're more interested in like how it's happening in the store and the consumer, the people who are getting in touch with my brand, with my packaging, with the things that I need to promote. So you can go, or we can go to market trends and explain a little bit like, hey, in your market, these are the things that the typical topics, you inform them with relevant content, not just like, okay, this is who we are. No, we know your market really well. We know all the things that's there. And you can quickly go back, and you are Magali, the brand manager, and I go, for example, to store. And here, instead of just showing products, we ask typical challenges people might have that we know from all the conversations sales have with prospects and customers. So you could say, like, my packages need, for example, to drive sales. That's the goal and the challenge that I'm working at now. So you can open it and you can still have the conversation and talk about it and have some numbers, like 80% of retailers believe shelf-ready packaging can deliver more, like 4% uplift, and so on and so on. But the most important thing is on the bottom of this. Like every time on a detailed page from a specific challenge, we have our asset library, you can call it, that are all related to this specific topic. And the power of this is that we've built it in that way that DS Smith manages everything themselves. So they just have a new testimonial, and the fair is tomorrow. They'll just add the asset, they tag it in the right way, and boom, it's there. So they don't need us anymore always to update these things, although it's in an HTML5 because of the SDK integration. And then here, for example, even the text, if you want to have that 20% over there and you want to update it to 25, you can do it as well within Showpad platform. And that's really, really powerful because we can create like a one-time version, which we work on, and then all the other work can be done by, of course, you have the people, by the local marketing teams. And then the power is, of course, that you, in your pitch, you can talk about different things. You can show movies. I should not explain how Showpad actually works, but it's really powerful to then come up and you see, like, if I close it and I open it, you stay in the experience. So you have here, for example, the different things that you more impact on shop floors, that you can talk about it, what for Oreo can mean, like here, and talk about the branding part itself, not just the packaging, but everything, like David says, like how is my brand perceived in every way, in all the different things. And you can have your conversation with your buyer instead of like presenting the things you want to present. So it's just one example, because people who know me know I can really talk long about all these things that I really like. But another thing that I just want to show you is for DS Smith, like being close to the customer is really important because it involves transport. A carton board is not that expensive, so you need to be close to the factory that you don't have to pay tons of money for transporting cartons. So when we built the first prototype, we involved like having a page as well to talk about the product itself. This is like version 1, which is there, and you can take a trip and you can say like, okay, I'm in France, for example, where do we are, and this is your location. So this is like the first step that we took because we needed to move forward. We did this entire job, what you see here for the English version, together with them in 3 months. It was an insane ride, I can tell you, but like it worked. The pilot was ready, and 50 sales were immediately able to start testing and piloting. And based on their information, we came back and we updated things, and then we were able to finish it and then duplicate parts of it. So what we are doing now, it's like a preview because it's not there yet. We are going to build a full location mapper natively in Showpad offline. So it's like, you can call it the Google Maps offline, but like since there is no internet connection, we have to create it ourselves. And the whole idea is that you can have the overview of all the places where the company is there. So for example, if you are Mondelez or Unilever, you have also a lot of factories all over the world. So you need to know that DS Smith is there as well. It's a very important one. And again, if we take France, like you could be able to zoom and pitch in. You can even add your customers' locations as well. You will be able to add your customer there, so he sees like his own pin there and say, you're actually really close. So that's the whole thing that we are building on. You will be able to filter on so that the sales can quickly say like, are you looking for an automotive specific division or a specific type of so that's the whole thing that we're building on now, and then we'll also roll it out in Showpad and that all the sales will be able to use it. So it's really the things that we will be using, continuously working on, coming up with new ideas, and then step by step making the full experience, the buyer experience, better and better. So I think that was it, what my part of it. We will, if you have specific questions, we can talk about it later. But I think what Dave is going to say about adoption and rollout is as important as just building the app itself, because you can create the best app in the world, but if your salespeople don't understand how to use it or use it wrongly, it can be a mess. So.
Yeah, what Dieter just explained, it might look simple. It looks like maps. But where the real power is, that's actually a demand of our business. One of the 2 questions that our sales guys always get when they go to a customer is, how far is your plant where you produce my packaging from my plant where I produce my food, my goods, whatever. They want them to be as closely situated as possible next to each other. So for us, that's really one of the things that is really, really important in that sales process, to as quickly as possible explain to the customer how far we are from each other. And so that actually fixes that. In the past, what happened, the sales, he would say, okay, Mr. Customer, I'll note down where your address is, drive back to the office, then go into Google, try to figure out how far the distance is, then put that in a presentation, and then X amount of weeks later go back to the customer and explain this far is how we are from each other. Now, they just do it on the spot the moment it's ready, and they immediately can say, oh, this address, so that they're there. Much faster, thanks to Showpad. But so I promised you also 4 tips that for us really are best practices, learnings that we picked up in the last year. And then the first one is, for us specifically, that it's almost a must to translate your content. We work in many countries. We're in 36 countries. We have a staff of around 28,000 people. So for us, that means that we've been translating our content into French, in German. We have even a Polish Showpad channel. But it's really highly appreciated, and that's really where you get some of the adoption. The second point, we really loved most the parts where we actually went to the regions and the countries and where we actually go and sit together. So you get a lot of efficiencies thanks to Showpad. You get to manage your content more efficiently. But for us, that means we just use that efficiency and we translate that in just spending more time together to discuss around things. Really, I remember a couple of weeks ago with my colleagues going to France and just sitting around the table and saying like, is this then the content for your region that you like? Did we miss anything? And then really getting very concrete feedback like, oh, you missed that one, and I have a deck that much more explains that, so we should add that. That's really, really valuable for us. A third point is we didn't lock the tool. At first, my perception was, oh, this is great, so I'll police it. As a marketing manager, I'll say, like, guys, this is what you can't do, so from now on you have to show this presentation. But totally went back on that. I think the moment you explain to the people in your company that it is possible to contribute to this, and it's much more an idea of together joining up, teaming up, and making it stronger and more consistent and relevant together, you will create much more buy-in. So we appointed, for us, we have 5 regions. Our market in Europe is split up across 5 regions. We have 5 people who are each one of them is responsible for one region from a marketing perspective. And we basically made those guys promoted users. So they can't delete stuff that we centrally publish, but they can add stuff. But like that, we get a lot of input from the regions. They all feed into the tool. And then we have these scheduled moments where we say, let's just revise that. Can region 1 leverage from region 2? Why doesn't region 1 build on our e-commerce story and region 2 builds on another part of our business that we need some explaining to do? And then the fourth one, it's actually my favorite. We played around a lot with, at the scale that we work, how do we now make this tool more public? How do we get even more engagement? How we create excitement? And so I'm going to show you how we do that.
Hello everybody at Showtime. I am Andrea. I work as marketing specialist at DS Smith. I am the person in charge of making the sales representatives more comfortable with the tool by explaining them the different features that Showpad offers, such as how to customize your pitch or how to engage further with your customers and leads by sharing content. And one of the next steps that we are planning to do at DS Smith is training them with video, very similar to the one that you are just seeing right now. And I hope you're really enjoying this event, and I'm looking forward to meet you because I'm there on the audience as well. Bye!
You see, it doesn't have to be more complex than this. Andrea is actually in the room. She's sitting around in the center of the room. So we literally filmed this in 10 minutes using just a regular photo camera. So this is actually the first of our training videos. And you see, you don't need big budgets to communicate to hundreds or thousands of people in your company. You just need to get that just honest explanation of what you're trying to do. And then movie format is, for us, something very modern, something very catchy. So totally sold on that concept. And we'll create many, many more of those. So thank you for all of your attention. And if you would have any questions at this point, just fire away.
I have a microphone. Should I throw it or not? Does anybody have a question regarding business or integration or whatever?
No questions?
Throw it.
How much time did it get into the creating of the experience app?
Well, as I said, it was a challenging ride. I think all the people who worked also on this some of them are in this room. As I said, it was about 3 months. It was kind of fast. So you should think about, let's say, 3 weeks about strategic level, like which story, which structure, which questions, which these things. About 3 to 4 weeks of design, building prototypes, wireframing, prototyping, and then getting confirmation as well, which went kind of fast since it was only a close group of people at DS Smith who just okay, we move forward on this, because if we involve too much people, it prolongs the cycle, of course, with weeks and maybe months. And then it was 6 to 7 weeks development, something, and then we rolled it out to, I think, 50 users, something, to the pilot. And then we got their feedback from the beginning, and we immediately said these are quick fixes that we can do. These are things that we will put in road. And then before integrating everything with the SDK, we did this. That's also something that I would recommend you to do if you start with experience apps. To do it first as a pilot, know that you will be able to change everything yourself, but test it first out before you do the whole integration, so that if you want to change things on, that you can still then do it before you integrate it with everything. So, but it can go quite fast, but again, It must be then short iteration notes that you can get quick feedback, but I'd say like 3 to 4 months is something realistic for this. Of course, for the English version. I'm not saying for all the other languages. That's of course a different story because then you need your local teams.
Thank you.
No, and actually for the, just to tap into that, for the different languages, you would think that's also an expensive effort, translating that into multiple languages. But we actually went about the process that we do that internally. So we set up kind of a collaboration. It's our own people that receive an Excel file, which is an export out of the English version. And so we distribute that across all of our regions. Then these people just have an Excel file with all of the words underneath each other. They quickly do the translation. And then from there we upload that again in the next channel, which is the localized version. So actually didn't spend any budget on the translating part.
Only time.
I will,
Anybody else with a question? I will throw it to you and then you can throw it to Philip.
Just a quick one. We saw the presentation of pages. Now, having pages, would you have adopted a different approach? Because you now fully programmed everything in HTML5. Would you have used a different approach?
I can totally understand. When I saw it, I also was like, ooh, is it like duplication? Were we too fast? So one, I think, being innovative and leading, that almost goes with you need to take those risks and be ahead. But then on the other hand, I don't see it as, I don't think the one overrules the other. I think we'll still stick to what we have, which is a very solid representation. It's almost like a web version of the story, the big story, everything that we want to tell. We'll stick to that. But then if you look at programs like account-based marketing, where we really want to communicate around the big tender for one customer, we'll probably be using those pages and quickly create pages for a tender, leave that online for a couple of months, but still stick to our existing implementation. I think the both just really complement well together.
A page is, if I understood it correctly, a page is going to be an asset as well. So I think it's a very complementary, like we build just a layer on top of it, which is the general layer that everybody can use during the sales pitches with filtered questions that are related to specific personas. And I think it's even good that the pages are there because now instead of having maybe 25 assets under a specific page where you then have to scroll down, you saw it, like you can scroll quite fast. Now you can maybe group them into specific information that you have maybe like instead of 25, like only 4 or 5, and it's like less scrolling and swiping and looking for it, you can directly go to specific elements. So I see this more as an added thing that makes it easier for you to manage it and make it more dynamic instead of just having PDFs or PowerPoints only behind it, but that you really can create something more valuable within the experience that exists. So,
okay.
Yeah, when you saw that circle, that rotating circle, which is like at the center of our Showpad, if you go in any offices of DS Smith around Europe, you will each time see that circle. So that was actually before we went into Showpad, we already had that visual representation of this is how we look at our channel, this is how we look at our market, and this is how we talk about DS Smith. So that will remain, you know, it's just a given. I don't think pages would actually be capable of showing that circle, animating it, and positioning all of this content around it. But like I said, it will be much more like an on top, and we're very grateful that these new features come out. We'll definitely be the first to use them.
Yes, hi. Do you gather extra information with the tool? For example, to send to CRM system, Salesforce or something else, next to gathering contact information, but other info that can be value for you guys?
Yeah, great question. So we're using Microsoft Dynamics in the company, but we're still making a lot of changes. We're also changing from version to version. I think it's version 8 to version 9 or something. So we didn't actually connect the systems yet. It's on our agenda, and we do want to do that. But at the moment, we don't have our CRM system connected to this one yet. It's a step that we're very eager to take. There's a lot of interest in doing that. But as a big corporate organization, it does take a lot of syncing with IT, with legal, etc. So it's just one of these steps we still need to take. So not yet no.
Okay, thanks.
Please.
Hi, so the question that maybe no one wants to ask, but I'm going to ask is, what is the cost of a project like that?
Yeah. You want me to take a first stab at it?
I
and
think
then,
it's better
maybe
if you do it.
Yeah. I think that the feedback to that one is, so this is HTML5, which is basically web language. So for me, the cost of a project like that could be the cost of I don't know how many web pages you saw, but X amount of web pages being built. I think there's, how many designs are in there in our Showpad? I think it's
You mean
limited, no?
Templates or
Templates, yeah.
pages?
Templates.
Not that much, like 10, 15 max, something
Yeah.
like that.
So the cost of creating that many web pages, and it's really HTML5 code that is then put in.
Yep.
But of course, like Dieter said before, the real value is to have a good thinking before you start to create the pages around what makes sense. And that was why my presentation, the first part, why it started so long. Because I did want to explain the complexity of multiple divisions, the complexity of many projects, and then the complexity of many personas. So all of that stuff is actually built in there, right? It's all in the end, when our sales or anybody in our organization goes out and goes in front of somebody that asks a question about the business, they can really reply to all of these questions now. And you would think that it's a lot of sales guys that really want this, but we got a lot of requests also from general management saying like, sometimes I'm being asked by a reporter to go and sit in front of him, and of course our business is complex, like a lot of businesses, and I don't know everything about everything, which is natural. But at least with Showpad, they can pull up some slides and tell a little bit about it, and then basically invite them to go and sit with somebody else, the more in-depth thought leader of that subject in the company. But it's like, it's a reassurance that this kind of a setup, that a lot of people in the organization ultimately can go in front of any audience and at least explain the top level part of the story in a correct, consistent way.
And your question regarding cost is also, you should split it up in different parts, because there is the cost of creating the experience app, thinking it out, designing it, developing it, but also your assets. Do you already have your assets? Which assets do you still need to create? And also, Smith does all the translation themselves.
Right.
That's no cost, but of course there is a cost in time. So cost can be really wide. It's like you can split it up in like the experience itself and the integration, and then of course all the assets we create, where most of our customers just do this or together with us or just themselves, because they have in their own teams people who do that. And then of course the translations is also that they do themselves, or with translators locally then in all over the world. So
Okay, thank you.
Some more questions?
In regards to the adoption, you mentioned a few points, but there's kind of a challenge where some salespeople, for lack of a better expression, think they know better. How would you kind of deal with them? And that you'd never be able to get them to get rid of PowerPoint. How would you deal with those people?
It's a good question. Of course, I don't have the answer for every question, but specifically for us, it was quite interesting. At first, when we were dealing with this program, we thought we'd do a pilot at a European level, and then we say, hey guys, look how beautiful it is. It's interactive and it's really pretty and it has all of the branding. And we thought that from there on we're golden. It's going to scale out. So we had to come back on that one, because when we actually went to the regions, they said, yeah, but guys, we didn't launch anything yet. First, you give the tool to me, then I'll do my pilot as a region or as a country. I'll go and sit with my sales guys. And then after a couple of weeks of testing and really giving you the assurance, like, yes, it's solid. Yes, all of my content is in there. And yes, this is what we as a country want to do. Only then you go one step further. So I don't think there will be ever the perfect situation where every sales guy goes crazy and jumps on this. But we took those steps. We got like a basic sign of saying, yes, we agree with this and this modification. This can be ours and we'll support it. And then when we show them or when we explain them which experiences we can build, like this map function, then that's where the eyes open up and they think like, oh wow, me as a sales guy or our sales force in our country, they can really save time in a very concrete way, meaning their cycle will be shorter and they can actually do something with it. And I think that's where the real secret is for us at this moment.
Thanks. Really like the story, so thank you for that. I was intrigued by the persona approach. I can imagine that different personas, of course, have different questions within different parts of the buying journey. I can also imagine local differences within the personas in the buying journey. How do you deal with the complexity of the content, and how do you determine the level of deepness of type of content you create?
Sure. And personas, we actually pretty much aligned. When we talk with our people, then at the persona level, I think there's pretty much alignment. I think also, as a marketeer, I don't think personas, you should try to make them too complex. So we have, I think we have 5 or 6 personas at the moment, and we really prefer to stick to that. So that's third part of the answer.
Yeah, and honestly, the tagging structure of the Smith is kind of complex in Showpad, to be honest. I think a few people in this room will confirm this. So if you have all the locations and all the countries and all the different verticals and then segments within the vertical, we have a huge overview sheet with the right tag, because the idea is when you upload an asset, you tag it in the right way and it's there. So you have to, there is of course some rules to respect to keep it manageable, but like it's not that difficult. You just need to respect what exists. So, but it has been a challenging way of bringing it all together in one place, but you can do it. It's not that. Showpad helps you that by, of course, once you're a specific country, that you show your most used tag, and that you can bulk upload it, and you don't have to do it one by one. But it's a challenging thing. That's an honest question, request on the answer on that. So.
There was this presentation that Dieter showed all the way in the end with these very nice visuals, you know, the creativeness around packaging and what we do, for example, for Mondelez in displays in the in-store environment. And of course, making sure that the quality of these decks, that there's nice visuals in there, that looks appealing and that people have access to that, is also part of the answer. Yeah. Just make sure that content brings them something additionally, something extra.
I see we still got 2 minutes. Do we last question maybe, or are all questions asked? If not, we're walking around here, so you can always grab us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here.
Have a great day.
See you later. Bye.